Welcome back. The last one that I wanted to do for this go-around is a discussion of your third assignment. So you probably saw on the syllabus that I said I was going to provide additional information later. What I do in the classroom with this third assignment is I put a big list of potential topics on the board. Things like, should the public be paying for sports arenas? Some of you probably know, if you're a sports fan, that San Diego Chargers just bolted from San Diego to Los Angeles. And the reason for that is San Diego was not willing to pony up the money to build a new arena for them. Whether that's a good idea or bad idea, who knows? But obviously it's important for us in Michigan too, because you and I are spending a fair amount of public money on building this hockey arena, basketball arena, whatever. And so the question is a good one, because in class I can have two people, one on the pro side and one on the con side, arguing of the economics of whether it makes sense for us to put public money into a project like this or not. Okay, so you got two very clear positions on a topic like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post somewhere along the way, I'm going to post that list for you so you can choose a topic that is of interest to you. But the idea is pretty clear. One of the things we have in our American society is we've lost some sense of civility. And civility to me means that what should we be able to do? We got to sit down and go through the arguments on both sides of whatever's going on to make a decision that is a good, best decision. Well, you got to, if you're going to do that, you got to be willing to compromise. You got to be willing to hear the other side. You got to be willing to examine the facts in a relatively unbiased fashion. And we're losing some of that in America. So one of the things that I would like to do here is, for your third assignment, is for you to take one of these ideas, whichever one you want, and write a paper where you are presenting on one side the arguments for for example, legalizing marijuana completely, just legalize it, or legalizing prostitution, or whatever. So on one part of your paper, you're saying, here are the reasons why it would make sense to do this. The other half of your paper, you're saying, here's why it makes no sense to do that. There are all sorts of reasons why that would be a dumb decision. And then your third piece in this paper is, okay, so now that you've done that, what is your conclusion about this particular issue? So that's the basic format. You got to present one side of the issue, you got to present the other side of the issue, and then you got to do a conclusion. But here's another piece that may be helpful. In economics, we talk about three standards that we use to judge public policy. That's what we're talking about here, is public policy questions: efficiency, equality, and liberty. And the notion is, in economics, we want to try and balance these. So it's not one against the others, but it's sort of a balanced process. So let's talk about efficiency real quick. Let me give you a drug example. How much money has the United States in total spent on the war on drugs over the last 25, 30 years? Billions. And so we've attacked the problem from the supply side. So we've gone down to South America and we've destroyed cocaine fields and done all sorts of stuff, and we've tried to attack the supply lines from there to the United States. But then we've also tried to attack the demand side. So we've done things like DARE programs in the school, where we take the little fifth graders and we run them through a program with a police officer, and at the end of the process they sign a pledge that says, I'll never ever use drugs the rest of my life. What's the minor problem with both the supply side issues and the demand side issues? It has had almost no effect on what drug use is in this country. So all that money, we might as well have just sort of wadded it up in a ball and pitched it away, because there was no benefit, or at least not much benefit, from all that stuff. Lots of other examples. One of the ones that was humorous to me is back when George W. was in office. George W. actually did a lot of very, very interesting things. One of them, he actually put some real money into the AIDS effort around the world. Very laudable. Well, one of the things to get that through Congress is some of the more conservative members of Congress said, you know, we're not going to sign on to this unless we also do the just say no to sex kind of stuff, so abstinence kinds of programs. And so last year, they went back and they looked at the evidence, the data connected to the just say no to sex programs in Africa, and what did they discover? No difference between the ones who went to the program and the ones who didn't. And so we spent all that money, and what effect did we get? Not much. And so efficiency argues there should be bang for the buck. If you're going to spend the money, let's get some return on that money. Let me give you another one that's connected to that. And some of you might remember this from earlier chapters, but the law of diminishing returns. And so law of diminishing returns says the first dollar or first unit of money you put in, what sort of effect are you going to get? Pretty substantial one. What are you going to get with the second unit, the third? But eventually, what happens the further you go? The less and less benefit you're going to get from each additional dollar spent. And so that is something that we talk about related to efficiency as well too, is that, you know, as time goes on, it gets harder and harder to get bang for the buck with some of these kinds of programs. So when you're talking about whatever issue, public policy issue you choose to write your paper on, I would like you to try and bring some efficiency issues into your paper. May not be easy, may not be able to do it, but if you can, that's a real plus, because efficiency is very important. But efficiency isn't the only issue. Equality. Okay, so again, let's go back to our drug issue again. So back in the 70s and 80s, we went through this massive revamping of the criminal justice system to send more and more people to jail for longer and longer periods of time. John Engler was governor, and we built lots of prisons in the state because the criminal population was going to go through the roof. And yeah, some of that wasn't at all true as time went on, but it certainly seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So we're sending lots and lots of people to jail for long periods of time. And I've taught in the prisons, and so I know a bit about what kind of folks we got in prisons. Who did we send to jail for long periods of time? They tended to be African-American males. They were far more likely to land in the state prison than, you know, other groups. And Hispanics were kind of close too. So the question is, when we did that policy, was there an equality question of who got really hammered hard for those things and other groups kind of got a pass to some degree? The answer is sure. In hindsight, we probably would have done some of that stuff different. It's one of the reasons that we're thinking about revamping some of our criminal justice stuff today, because we realized that if we send somebody to jail for, you know, too much weed in their pocket when they're arrested, send them away for 20 years, how much does that cost you and I to have them in jail for that long? And the answer is it's a pile of money. So it's enormous economic consequences when we do that. And so let me give you another example. In this state, we have sales tax, 6%. A number of years ago, Proposal A came and we decided to reduce the property tax that you and I pay, and we raised our sales tax from 4% to 6%. Okay, that's fine. And you're trying to figure out, does that make sense? Is that a better way to collect revenue to take care of the school system? And in many ways, it really was. I mean, it's a very complicated story, and I'm not going to tell you all of it right now. But the idea is you had some winners and losers. Some groups actually made out like bandits on that deal. Other groups got hammered in terms of what they paid in taxes. Well, think about what happens. If you're a golf course, do you pay 6% sales tax? If you're a doctor's office, do you pay 6% sales tax? So we exempted a whole bunch of organizations from paying that tax. Well, what are we discovering now? That 6% is not covering the cost of, you know, all of the stuff that we needed to cover. And so the question is, who wins and who loses? Who is able to take advantage of the system and who isn't. Okay, and that gets us to some other questions that show up in the course. Crony capitalism, the power of money in the political process, all sorts of other issues may well show up when we get to this one. But trying to decide if it makes sense to advantage this group and disadvantage those. I'll give you another example. When Snyder showed up in office, one of the first things he did is he lowered the tax on our wealthiest folks and wealthiest corporations in the state substantially. And he raised taxes on senior citizens who had big pensions. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you what's right or wrong on that question, but that was what happened. And so what did we do? We advantaged this group, the big businesses and the richest folks in the state, and we disadvantaged the senior citizens on pensions. Okay, that's an equality question. So equality can actually be racial, it can be age, it can be by region, it can, equality can be based on any criteria you want to talk about. And the third criteria is liberty. So the liberty is an interesting one because at some core level, I think all of us Americans have a touch of libertarian in us. And when I say a touch of libertarian in us, that means that basically, shouldn't I be able to do whatever I want as long as I'm not affecting somebody else? The answer is maybe. And that's where it gets tricky because, we used to have laws that said that you can't perform certain sexual acts in your bedroom because the government deems that to be bad. Well, does that violate liberty standards? Sure it did. And so in some cases, you get Republicans or Democrats on various sides of the liberty question. But let me give you a couple examples of this one. A couple of years ago, my dad remarried. And after he remarried, his wife's brother, who had some difficulties, mental, who knows, issues, they bring him over and they put him in this itty bitty little house, which is fine. It was great. Actually, a golf cart ride away from his sister. Well, the interesting question is the neighbor. The neighbor had lost his job because this was, still Great Recession time, and he couldn't pay his mortgage and he couldn't pay his taxes, and so he had his house up for sale. It was fine. That happens. Well, what happened is his sewer system backed up. And he said, I'm not fixing my sewer system because, I'm trying to sell the house. I don't have money anyway. Well, here's his sewage running out into the road, into the neighbor's yard, which happened to be my dad's wife's brother. And so he was arguing that he had the right to do that. Excuse me, does he have the right to do that? If he's the only one affected, if he wants to sleep in it, I don't really care. But once what he does starts to affect other people, all of a sudden, we've now violated the liberty standard. And there's lots of other examples of how liberty works, both on the good side, the bad, whatever. But the idea here is trying to balance the three standards. And in America, we tend to have moved towards this more absolute notion on both the left and the right, where you don't balance things. You've got an absolute. Well, no, let's understand the balance that's going on here. So what I would like you to do in this third paper is choose a topic, and I will post that for you soon. So you can see what kind of topics I'm suggesting. Not that they're the only ones, but the ones I'm suggesting typically have two sides. And so it's easy to argue one side or the other. And so what you're doing is you're going through and looking at the reasons why we would want to do this, why we would not want to do this, whatever it is. I mean, think about an issue as complex as legalizing prostitution in this country. Wow. Does it play out against these three? You bet it does. And if anybody's interested in trying to sort out how that actually works, I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about that. But the answer is, I want you to be thinking about public policy in a more holistic sense. And so the paper is designed to do both sides and then come up with your conclusion, whatever it is. Now, let me be fair. Economics is simply one lens to look at a particular problem. Are there other lenses? You bet there are. And so I don't want to suggest that there aren't other ways to look at some of these problems. But let me be fair. Econ is a good way. And you ought to try and be able, or at least should be able to try and apply some of the methodology of economics against this stuff. Could you apply the elasticity, inelasticity arguments? Sure you could. Could you apply some of the cost issues that we talked about? Sure you could. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that you can bring the course kind of together by looking at this stuff. So if you got questions or problems with this third assignment, by all means, let me know, because it should be a fun one. It should be interesting for you to get after this stuff. And so just keep me in the loop. And as I said, to start the course, I want you all to be successful. I want you to feel like you got a good grasp of economics and a good grasp of how we actually apply these principles in real life. Thank you very much.